We turn on the TV or look at our phones, and we're bombarded by propaganda, being told what to think by paid actors, or experiencing the censorship of real people. When you talk politics to your friends or family, you have to guard what you say out of fear of losing a friend, being shunned, or being canceled. So, how do you hear about what normal, average, non-paid people are thinking about American politics today? I'm Lauren.
And I'm Evan.
And we are here for another week bringing you the perspective of the average American voter.
Woo! Check this out! This new setup, this crisp audio.
Yeah, if you hadn't already noticed, just by the sound of my sweet voice.
Oh, I hope they hear that. Yeah, last week was pretty horrible, so that was my fault. I plugged in my cord wrong, and it just sounded like booty cheeks, so we upgraded.
Yes, so that kind of catalyzed ordering the mics. We had already been talking about doing this, so we just pulled the trigger. Now we're fully committed. Oh yeah, that was going to, the episode 3 was like our big break. That was going to be our blow up. We were going to be Ben Shapiro.
We were going to be the next Steven Crowder.
Yep.
But you guys couldn't really hear it, and I think that discouraged the millions from flocking in and listening to it. So we understand, and we'll be better.
Yep. So.
So, what you drinking?
I'm drinking a vodka cran.
Vodka cranberry, the drink of the week?
The drink of the week for our abortion episode.
I hate you. Such stupid timing. Yikes. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, abortion episode. Somehow Lauren convinced me to do an entire episode on abortions, so that'll be great. But actually, it's going to be kind of good. There's a lot going on in the news right now regarding abortion and changing the ruling on Roe v. Wade. Well, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting because this is one of the topics where we kind of have differing opinions, and we can come at it from kind of technically two sides. I'm not quite pro-choice, but like I'm a little bit more flexible with my definitions on some things, and so yeah, it'll be interesting to talk about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason we're bringing this up this week is because the United States Supreme Court has decided to hear a case out of Mississippi that potentially could overrule Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey.
So that's big stuff.
Yeah. So Evan's going to go into the history of how the Mississippi case that's going to be heard kind of came to be, starting all the way back with the law that's being challenged.
Right on. All right. So we're looking at, I'm sorry, I kind of feel like crap today, so I'm going to be a little off. Hopefully you can hear me.
Those are excuses.
Yeah, that's an excuse. If I mess up the audio again, it's just my little throat's sore. Yeah. Okay, so Mississippi had an abortion case that was heard by the Supreme Court. No. There's a state Supreme Court, right?
Yes.
Yeah, by the Mississippi.
Their Supreme Court.
Yeah, that was what my intended verbalization was.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so Phil Bryant was the governor of Mississippi. Is the governor of Mississippi?
Yep.
This is in 2018.
Yep, he is.
He is still the governor.
Yep.
He signed HB 1510, which is known as the Gestational Age Act. Yep. That was in March of 2018, and he did so saying he is committed to making Mississippi the safest place in America for an unborn child. And the law forbids most abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, with exceptions for medical emergencies or severe fetal abnormalities.
Fetal?
Severe fetal abnormalities.
I mean, severe fetal abnormalities. Oh my gosh. Typically are fatal, so that's
true, yeah.
That's close.
I'm right.
Yeah, so 15 weeks, and this was really tough math for me.
15 weeks. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Is 3 months and 3 weeks.
So a lot of time.
A lot of time.
That's
over
a third.
A third
Wow.
of your pregnancy or into the second trimester.
Mm-hmm.
and this is a radical bill.
Would you have a little baby bump at that point?
I don't know when your bump starts showing.
15 weeks?
I don't know. Typically, you can start to feel the baby kick around between 12 and 15.
Yeah, but you'd know by 15 weeks.
You hopefully would know. I mean, have you ever seen the show I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant?
No.
Okay. But typically, that would be like a wild thing if you did not know.
Right.
But there's a reason that this bill is banning at 15 weeks, and that's the time period they picked, because you probably are wondering, well, a 15-week-old child can't live outside the womb. Mm-hmm. Like, a child can't live outside the womb at 15 weeks, so why did they pick that time frame?
Okay.
And the reason is because most abortions that are performed after 15 weeks gestation are dilation and evacuation procedures, which involve the use of, and I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit graphic, and actually I'm not sorry because more people should know about this.
This whole episode is going to be kind of graphic, probably. Probably.
So maybe just slap a trigger warning on that whole thing. But typically, abortions performed after 15 weeks gestation are dilation and evacuation procedures that involve the surgical instruments used to crush and tear the unborn child apart before removing the pieces of the dead child from the womb. And the Mississippi legislature says that this is a barbaric practice, dangerous for the maternal parent, and demeaning to the medical profession. So, you guys, I mean, on the internet, I've seen two various types of abortion practices. The one with, like, the little vacuum, you know, that goes in and, like, sucks up the fetus. And then the other one is the one where they dismember the baby. And most abortions after 15 weeks dismember the baby. So, the Mississippi Supreme... I know.
This is why I don't like talking about this.
Well, I think that's about as graphic as it's going to get, really. Okay. I could have been a lot more graphic, but I pared it down. The bill, the Mississippi bill, if anybody wants to go read it, like Evan said, it's HB 1510, goes into a lot more detail. But that was the reason for picking the 15-week marker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then the bill also goes on, it points out that only 1 in 7 nations in the world permit non-therapeutic or elective abortion on demand after the 20th week of gestation.
20 weeks gestation.
Yeah, that's 1 in 7. So, like, U.S. is pretty...
What's the percentage of that? What would 1 in 7 be?
1 in 7? It's like 15-ish%.
So 15% of the world allows elective abortions after 20 weeks of gestation, and the United States is one of those.
Yeah.
They fall into that 15%?
After 20 weeks. And only a quarter allow it after 12 weeks.
And so the United States part of that as well?
Well, yeah. Don't we allow it up till pregnancy? Or up till birth in some states?
Well, in some states. We'll get into that a little bit.
Okay. But yeah, the U.S. falls into both of those groups. So we're either the most woke and most good country, or we have no regard for human life.
Or we're so woke it's like gone full circle.
Yeah, depends on your...
We're so woke that we're actually now rounding the corner and going back to super oppressive.
Right, well...
Yeah.
And we'll talk about why people take different stances on that for sure.
Right. So this sounds like a pretty radical bill. Was it passed?
This bill?
Yeah.
Yes. The bill passed in both the House and the Senate before being sent to the governor. And why do you say it was radical? That doesn't seem too radical to me.
Okay. It was deemed radical by the media.
It was deemed radical? Really? 15 weeks? Yeah. No. Okay. So the same day the governor signed the bill, and the Center for Reproductive Rights filed a lawsuit.
Baby.
Thank you. I can read.
Why don't we try that sentence again?
Did I mess it up?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, you had your training this week, and we really learned that some people really struggle with reading. So, give me a break.
I'm now selling knives on the internet for money, and not to brag or anything, but I've already sold over $3,500 worth of knives in 2 days.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
I'm really good at reading a script.
Yeah, so if you If you want some knives, slide in the DMs.
Slide into the DMs.
Okay, so I'll restart that. The same day the governor signed the bill, the Center for Reproductive Rights filed a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the law. That was good.
Good one.
And was granted a temporary restraining order preventing the bill from going into effect. Okay. There's only one remaining clinic that provides abortion services in Mississippi, and that is Jackson's Women's Health Organization, and this organization has already had a cutoff time for abortions at 16 weeks.
Yeah, and that's for the same reason. This abortion clinic just doesn't do the dismembering practice. But it's kind of wild that Mississippi only has one remaining abortion clinic as is.
Yeah, that seems very radical. It seems like it's not the trend that the U.S. has been going in.
For sure. Well, we'll get into a little bit of that also.
Up till now.
Right. So the reason, though, that Evan and I are giving you guys this background is because it plays a major role in what the Supreme Court is going to be hearing. So we want everyone to know exactly what is going to be brought up in the Supreme Court case. And it's basically arguing the constitutionality of this law. So that's why we wanted to go into detail about it. I know we're not here to, read at you guys, and the point of this isn't to, throw facts at you, but it's important to the rest of the conversation.
Is it the constitutionality of the Mississippi law, or is that going into Roe v. Wade and changing judgment on that?
So, both.
Is that a good segue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good segue. So, if they rule that this law is constitutional, it will overturn Roe v. Wade. And I'll get into why that is. So, for the next couple minutes, I'm going to talk about a couple law cases, two of which are probably some of the most important law cases right behind, Board v. Brown of Education versus Board of Education.
Before you go into that, I'm trying to wrap my head around this still.
Yeah.
So, if the U.S. Supreme Court rules that the Mississippi law is constitutional, that will make Roe v. Wade overturned in just Mississippi or the entire country?
No, the entire country.
Really?
It will overturn Roe v. Wade. Yep.
That's okay.
Which is why people are geeking out about this and why we decided to talk about it this week.
Interesting.
That's huge news.
Big news. That's very big news.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Whack my
go
microphone.
on then.
Okay, so like Evan just said, immediately after the law was passed, lawsuits were filed. So the Jackson Women's Health Organization versus Courier was heard in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi. And that court held that the bill would be permanently banned, or enjoined for my law geeks, because it was an unconstitutional ban on abortions prior to viability, and therefore it violated the United States Supreme Court precedent and the 14th Amendment's guarantee of autonomy for women desiring to control their own reproductive health. In this decision, the court cited Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which we'll talk about. Essentially, Planned Parenthood and Casey and Roe v. Wade go hand in hand together, and I don't know why more people don't know about Planned Parenthood versus Casey, because Roe actually doesn't talk about the logistics of how abortions will be controlled in the country, and Planned Parenthood versus Casey does. So it's really interesting that when we talk about overturning a case, in all honesty, it's more likely that Planned Parenthood versus Casey is going to be overturned, and maybe there's some way they can make it so Roe won't be. But that's kind of law semantics. Anyway.
Okay.
So, like I said, the court cited Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which said, before viability, the state's interests are not strong enough to support a prohibition of abortion or the imposition of a substantial obstacle to the women's effective right to elect the procedure. And since 15 weeks is not considered viable for a fetus, the state cannot ban abortions prior to 15 weeks or all the way up until 20 weeks. So, and I'll get into this in a little more detail, but Planned Parenthood versus Casey bans the state's ability to restrict abortions up until 20 weeks. every single state can ban abortion at 20 weeks or any other time frame between 20 weeks and birth. So that period of a woman's pregnancy at this point has already been ruled on.
Really? Okay.
So, like, certain states straight up can just say, no, at 20 weeks, you cannot have an abortion.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So the court notes that viability is not the same for every pregnancy, but is still and is determined on a case-by-case basis. But viability, just so everyone is clear, is typically around 23 weeks, meaning at 23 weeks, if the child was born, it could live.
Really?
Yeah.
At 23 weeks?
At 23 weeks.
Dang.
The typical...
it could, or it has a high probability of?
It will live. If given the right medical treatment, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's high risk. You never want that to happen.
That's about 6 months. No, that's less than 6 months. It's like 5 months.
5 and 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yep. So if the baby's born at the time, we have the technology now to ensure that they'll live.
Okay.
Again, that's all things going correct. Even after that, something could go horribly wrong and they could die. But that happens even in regular childbirth.
Right.
So, anyway, the state argued in this court case that the Gestational Age Act is a regulation, which is allowed by Planned Parenthood versus Casey. It's not a ban, it's a regulation. And that, again, kind of gets into, like, definitions and terms. However, the court disagrees that this law falls into the category of a regulation, and it states that it's just a ban. But to me, that kind of seemed like the court was grasping at something to grab onto to say that this was unconstitutional. Like, why even bring that up? They literally, for pages, and I read this whole case, for pages talk about, well, this isn't a regulation, it's a ban. Right. How dare.
Yeah, and I don't think that seems like it's the case. It's a regulation on when you can get the abortion versus, so.
I agree.
To say it's a ban is, I don't know.
Right. Okay. So, after that, there was an appeal. Yay, legal stuff.
Yippee.
Yay. So all that means is that the state was like, I disagree with that ruling. I'm going to take it up to the next level. So the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit heard Jackson Women's Health Organization versus Dobbs. And the reason I'm reading these court case names to you guys is that so you can look them up and read them yourself if you want to. Jackson Women's Health Org versus Dobbs is the one that's going to come up as the one that the United States Supreme Court is going to hear, because that's the one the Court of Appeals heard. So I don't know why the defendant in the two cases changed from Currier to Dobbs. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you this so you can look it up. Cool?
Bet.
Okay. So the Court of Appeals affirmed the district court ruling, meaning they agreed that the Gestational Age Act was invalid because it was unconstitutional. And the court reiterated that the ban on pre-viability abortions as opposed to regulations was not within the state's rights to control, as in the women still have the right to choose prior to this point in gestation. And then it brought two other issues up that were both procedural. And then a writ of cert, I'm not going to try to say the full Latin name because I will embarrass myself, was given on the first and relevant question. So that sounds confusing, but all it means is the United States Supreme Court has allowed this case to enter their docket to be heard. And that was the news that came out this week. But they're not going to hear the procedural stuff that's brought up in this case. It only wants to talk about whether or not the Gestational Age Act is constitutional.
Okay. And what's the timeline looking like for when they're going to rule on this?
Yeah, so I tried to look it up. It's kind of hard to say.
It was just brought to the Supreme Court this week?
They just accepted it to be added to the docket. So thousands of cases every single year try to appeal to the United States Supreme Court. Almost none of them make it. The United States Supreme Court gets to decide what cases it hears.
So this was added to the list that they're going to?
They've accepted to hear in their next session. But that being said,
they've deemed it worthy.
Cool. So what's really interesting about that, too, is this case was up for writ multiple times already, and it was denied. But for some... Writ of cert. Okay. I do not want to go into...
lawyer stuff.
I do not want to go... I should say permission. This case was given permission to enter into the court, the United States Supreme Court. That's all that writ of cert means.
Right.
But it's been up for permission multiple times and has been denied, and for some reason they've picked it up again now and are like, all right, fine, we'll hear it.
Cool. All right, well, that's awesome.
But that begs the question, is it political?
Is it political? Why would it be political at this
time? Because
time?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is now off the Supreme Court, and Amy Coney Barrett is on.
Okay, and do they have complete control over, like, okay. Well, I think it was talked about when the new girl, Amy Coney Barrett, when she was coming in, that was the big talk that this would be something that would come up. And yeah, I think that was partly why there was so much controversy over Trump being able to select Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it probably could be political, but it could just be because it's been turned down in the past because they had the majority, and now it was accepted because there's a conservative majority.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So it's just kind of interesting, and I think it's worth bringing up just because, like, what the heck? Why are they taking it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So is this a good time to talk about what your stance is on it?
Well, I'd like to go through Roe and Planned Parenthood before that.
Sure. Okay.
So, how many people have heard of Roe v. Wade?
Yeah, by a show of hands.
Okay. How many people have read any of Roe v. Wade? I had to. I'm in law school. But I'm sure almost none of you raised your hand. Right?
If anyone raised their hands, they're dorks. No, I'm just kidding.
You're calling our listeners out. You're bullying our listeners.
No. Thank you for participating.
Well, the point of that exercise is Roe is so talked about, but almost no one knows actually what it's about.
I learned at one point, I know, and I just forgot it. Mm-hmm. But I believe that at some point in our academic careers did have to learn the logistics and everything behind it.
And by academic careers, do you mean in college or in high school?
I believe it was high school.
Okay.
I don't think I took any classes like that in college.
Really? Because I thought you went to DNC every semester in college.
DNC?
The DNC? The Democratic National Convention.
There were some.
That's a joke.
There were some classes. Well, it's not really a joke. That's the thing. There were some classes that were.
You didn't laugh at all, and I was like, "Wait, this is funny," and you're not laughing. Anyway.
It was funny, and it is true.
Okay.
Yo, I saw something. Little side note. This meme almost made it into this week's meme review. But it didn't.
But you're bringing it up? It was good enough to bring it up? You were not going to show them?
It was this crazy leftist chick, and she's talking about how all of the institutions are, or all of the college institutions are far-right propaganda machines. I was like, wait, what? What?
Wait, all of the what are far-right?
All college institutions are slinging far-right propaganda. Yeah.
Carson?
Well. But it was because Notre Dame actually just, they signed some petition or whatever so that Biden didn't get some award that Notre Dame gives out usually during times of crises, and it's because of his stance on abortion. So It loops in.
Full circle.
I guess Notre Dame is a Catholic, or it's a religious institution.
Yeah.
And
a lot of colleges claim to be religious, and then
Notre Dame stands by it.
Well, dang. All right. Well, and this just goes to the point of, this is an important topic. I know it's a hot button issue, and I really hope that you've stayed tuned to this point. You didn't just click away when you saw that we are talking about abortions today.
We're getting drunk today. I'm not feeling
We're
well.
getting drunk tonight.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. that. Hey. Okay, but back to what I was saying.
Yeah, continue.
This is a huge issue in America, and I know that it's a sensitive topic, but it's worth talking about. And hey, we're here to give you the perspective of two average American voters on the topic, one who is very pro-life, and one not so much. So, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay. So, in Roe v. Wade, they have what is called the mystery passage. Okay? And they define liberty via this mystery passage, okay? Roe v. Wade, if you're thinking about, like, okay, here's the basic facts of a case, here's the reasoning for the facts, they are here. Like, they are so high up in the clouds, it's unbelievable. It's almost like reading poetry. Like, you have no idea what they're actually saying, but it kind of sounds good.
Sure.
Okay. So, in Roe v. Wade, liberty is defined, and this is what they say about it. They say, and by they I mean the justices that wrote the opinion, at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, of the mystery of human life. Beliefs about these matters could not define the attributes of personhood were they formed under the compulsion of the state. So, what do you think about that passage? What did you get from that?
Yo.
Yeah.
Wait, let me reread it.
You weren't listening.
No, this is poetry, man.
You zoned out.
I was never good. That's some Shakespearean.
Okay. At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. Beliefs about these matters could not define the attributes of personhood were they formed under the compulsion of the state.
All right, I'd have to look at it, but it's talking about the definition of what is
Liberty.
Liberty?
Yeah, because the 14th Amendment...
So how is this related to abortion?
Right. So the 14th Amendment gives you the right to due process, which is a whole thing. And basically, the matters of the case involve the most intimate choices and personal...
tonight. Continue.
You're going to become a menace as this episode goes on. But the good news is we're getting through the dense stuff now, and the rest of the episode's going to be pretty just our opinions. So hang in there. But due process in this case is talking about involving the most intimate and personal choices a person can make in a lifetime. Choices central to personal dignity and autonomy, which are central to liberty and protected by the 14th Amendment. So abortion, according to the United States Supreme Court, is rooted in the 14th Amendment and the Due Process Clause, which protects liberty. And then going back to how they define liberty, liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life.
Wow. So that's not really a strong...
Okay, but this is what I'm saying. The facts are here, interpretations here. They're like somewhere up here.
Yeah, no, that's
Roe v. Wade is bananas. Like, seriously, when you read it,
it's like, really a stretch.
They took LSD and wrote this opinion.
Yeah.
Truly. Like, I have never read a Supreme Court case like this, seriously, and I cannot tell you now how many I've read. Okay? Absolutely ridiculous. So that's why Planned Parenthood versus Casey goes hand in hand with Roe. Planned Parenthood versus Casey basically takes those super high abstract principles and applies it to abortion.
Right on.
Okay.
All right.
So when people talk about Roe versus Wade, theoretically, they could overturn Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which gets into the specifics, and maybe keep Roe v. Wade. Because Roe v. Wade, all they're saying is that once you have the right to define your own concept of existence and of meaning and of the world and the universe. That doesn't sound very radical, but essentially what it means is there's no right and wrong. There's no reality. You get to define it for yourself, and that is what liberty is. Thoughts?
Well, and for me, what I was, when you were reading that, I was trying to interpret it in the, like, how it relates to abortion.
Okay.
And I was like, it's really only taking one person's life into account. It's not at all taking into account the liberty of the unborn child. Right. If that makes sense to you?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
That was just how I was trying to interpret that poetry.
Okay, but I think really, like, it doesn't even sound that bad. You're like, well, yeah, people should have the right to kind of define what they want to be and who they are and what the world means, right?
Well, and that's the amendment, 14th Amendment, right? Am I bad?
No, I think that's a bad interpretation of it, but it's a common interpretation.
Oh, okay.
And quite honestly, I don't want to get into, like, con law.
Yeah,
if that's okay with you.
That's good. I'm not a...
Okay. But all you need to know is that abortion is rooted in the 14th Amendment, and Roe v. Wade doesn't actually define what abortion is, but says that you have the right to define your own concept of existence.
That's so weak, dude. What the hell? What a stupid... I don't like it.
All right, so how about we go into Planned Parenthood versus Casey, so you know what the Supreme Court has actually said on abortion.
All right, yeah, let's go.
Because Roe v. Wade, again, is like...
deep into the facts this episode.
We are, and again, I kind of apologize for that, but the flip is, like, you need to know this if this case is going to go to the Supreme Court and be overruled.
Mm-hmm. So right now we've covered that Roe v. Wade has pretty weak standing. Like, yeah. It's a stupid interpretation in the first place. So...
Whoa, chill.
Whoa.
RBG is, like, dead now, dude. R.I.P. That. Hey!
Okay.
Literally no one is going to get that except Leah. And we're going to be like...
No, we're going to have, like, millions of millennial followers. And
you're right.
Gen Zs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, I have the case up here like a big nerd. Right?
Yeah, you are kind of a nerd.
I am a nerd.
What's that from? A higher power? A higher law?
It's called A Higher Law, Readings on the Influence of Christian Thought in Anglo-American Law.
Illuminati.
Dude, chill.
Bro. All right.
It's actually written by a Regent Law professor. Big plug.
Oh, shit.
Mm-hmm. He is my torts professor.
Very cool.
Yeah. I didn't take foundations with him, but he's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyway, this is not him. This is an excerpt of Planned Parenthood versus Casey that he included in his book.
So he won't copyright strike us?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope not. I'm giving him a plug for our millions of followers.
True.
Thank you. Thank you for giggling. Okay. So, the Planned Parenthood versus Casey court says, it must be stated from the outset and with clarity that Roe's essential holding, the holding we affirm, has three parts. First is the recognition of the right of a woman to choose to have an abortion before viability to obtain it without undue interference from the state. Wow, I'm having a stroke. So, part one of their ruling is women have the right to abort up until the child is viable. 20 to 23 weeks. Okay. Before viability, the state's interests are not strong enough to support a prohibition of abortion or the imposition of a substantial obstacle to the woman's effective right to elect the procedure. So that's the little snippet that was quoted by the appellate court for the Mississippi case. They were like, look it, in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, they said, prior to viability, you can't ban abortions.
Right. It seems like I was just thinking we should have a button. That's my opinion.
That's my opinion.
That seems like an opinion.
You don't think it's a legal standing?
I mean, I don't know the law behind it, but it seems like...
Well, the law behind it is Roe.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a weak argument.
Okay. The second part of this ruling is a confirmation of the state's power to restrict abortions after fetal viability if the law contains exceptions for pregnancies which endangers the woman's life or health. So that's what I was saying before. At 20 to 23 weeks, states are like, we Gucci, we can ban.
We Gucci.
Okay. All right. But again, with exceptions to pregnancies that endanger the woman's life or health, because obviously if the woman dies, the baby can't be born, or it can be, I don't know. That goes into a little bit more than I think.
Right.
Right. Okay. And third is the principle that the state has legitimate interests from the outset of the pregnancy in protecting the health of the woman and the life of the fetus that it may become a child. These three principles do not contradict one another, and we adhere to each. So that's kind of wild. They start out very strong. No bans on abortions prior to viability. Then they say the state has a right to control after viability, and the state has a right to control and protect the fetus's life. Kind of nuts, in my opinion, but whatever.
Nutty.
Okay, and then later on, they say men and women in good conscience can disagree, and we suppose some shall always disagree about the profound moral and spiritual implications of terminating a pregnancy, even in its earliest stage. Some individuals find abortion offensive to our most basic principles of morality, but that cannot control our decision. Our obligation is to define liberty of all, not to mandate our own moral code. Pause. What are laws?
Yeah, I do think laws should be based in morality, and they are like...
And they are! Why do we ban murder?
Yeah, it is the
fundamental
building block, like what we...
Why do we ban murder?
Yeah, morality and laws go hand in hand.
Because it's wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do we think it's wrong? I thought we had the ability to define for ourselves what existence was. Do we see how already, like, this argument is just trash?
Yeah, it's a pretty garbage argument. I agree.
It should be overturned on the sole fact that it's trash.
I feel like the fine print of the actual laws that are in place are less convincing than the actual like arguments that you hear everyday people making.
You think like the Supreme Court went way high, and those high... Well, here's what it is, right? If you get into the nitty-gritty and bring up situations that suck for women in continuing their pregnancies, that is a more convincing argument than going all the way to the top of the argument and trying to figure out where the roots of it lie.
Right, and that's when you're arguing for free, like pro-choice.
Right.
But when you're arguing pro-life, I feel like the arguments you can go all the way up to the top.
Yes.
And it makes more sense.
And that's why it's the better argument. You can go all the way up to the top because it's rooted in something.
Yeah,
you're looking
rooted in morality.
Yes! Pro-choice, if you go all the way up to the top, is rooted in the fact that your reality is your own and nothing else matters. Damn.
Oh, you hit that.
Thank you. And I liked the pause for dramatic effect.
It was
Thank
super
you.
Dramatic. It was super dramatic. I think we got some people in tears right now. Sheesh.
Okay. So, with that being said, what Evan... Uh-oh. Are you good?
These are $20.
You know what?
They're bomb, though, for $20, though. Aren't we crisp?
Crisp. Our voice is crisp. Okay. Okay, but, Evan...
Okay.
What do you think of the Gestational Age Act? What do you think of the Supreme Court agreeing to hear it? And what do you think the right thing would be once they do hear it?
Are you asking me my like full-on opinion of what this ruling should be? What
is your opinion about everything we just went through, not taking into account arguments we're going into after this?
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, from what you just talked about, it doesn't sound like the current ruling on all this is very, like this law passed, but it wasn't really, like, on a firm, like, really good...
What law are you referring to?
Roe v. Wade and the other guy.
Yep. Planned Parenthood versus Casey, yeah.
Yeah. Like, those aren't... That was pretty shitty. Like, that's not good law. It doesn't seem like... Seems like really a stretch. It's not quite a... But, okay, that being said...
So in and of itself, you think that the law... You disagree with their ruling on how it relates to liberty in the 14th Amendment?
Yeah, I disagree with the interpretation of the 14th Amendment.
Cool. Great. Cool.
But...
What do you think about Planned Parenthood versus Casey saying no abortions prior to viability?
Planned Parenthood... Wait, what was that?
That case, the second case we just talked about, says no
Casey.
Abortions prior to viability. What do you think of that ruling? Or no, you can't ban abortions after viability. Sorry. Yeah.
I think that's a great ruling.
Okay.
Right? That's no. You can't have an abortion after the 23 weeks. That was that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a...
Well, solid. You possibly can, but states have the right to regulate it.
Oh. I think that's a solid federal law, yeah.
Okay.
To give it to the states to decide on.
Okay. So you know that, like, that really graphic thing we read earlier would be something that would be happening.
It would give the states the right to decide on it.
No.
Yeah, it would become state law.
Well, do you remember, so the Mississippi bill bans abortions after 15 weeks, not 23 weeks.
Right.
So there's a period of time between 15 weeks and 23 weeks, which is kind of a long time. How long is that? Over a month.
2 months.
2 months. Where in order to have an abortion, you have to dilate the woman, break up the child with a surgical instrument, crush it, tear it apart, and pull it out piece by piece.
I choose the best times to take a sip.
You do?
Yeah, what are you saying here? Yeah, like after...
So what I'm saying is, do you agree with the ban? Do you agree that states should have the right to allow these kinds of abortions?
I don't believe that anyone should be able to have an abortion after 23 weeks.
Okay.
Or really, 15 weeks seems like a good time to me. But with the current rulings and everything, I think it's fine that they ruled that it should go to the states to decide on it.
But don't you think? But don't you think that they should allow states to decide to push it back all the way to 15 weeks from 23 weeks, so that no one is having these abortions where they're breaking up the child with a surgical instrument and pulling it out piece by piece?
I don't know. I guess I would be okay with a federal law saying that.
Okay.
But the thing is if they're going to rule on something and they're going to have like a federal law and then state laws giving, I would just assume that most states would be like, yeah, no, we're just going to go with what the federal law is because,
okay,
I don't know. The states I want to live in, I hope wouldn't allow that type of thing.
Right. Okay. We are not going to include a video of what this looks like. They have ultrasounds of these procedures.
Yeah, let's not include that.
Okay, but just so everyone's well aware.
Okay, everyone is well aware.
Fetuses,
you've said it like 3 times.
No. Fetuses can feel pain and are aware of danger at that age and try and escape the surgical tool. So I'm going to cry.
They're trying to escape?
There are videos of children who are trying to escape. Shoot.
Drop it. She's very passionate about this. And yeah, this...
It's so horrible that, like... It's almost unfathomable. And when you think about it, like, for any extended period of time, it fucks me up, man. But everyone should go out and watch a movie called Unplanned. It's a true story about a woman who worked at Planned Parenthood and saw these procedures being done. And I'm just going to direct your attention to that movie because we're not going to go into, like, showing any of those types of videos. Plus, they're really horribly graphic and you'll cry, so.
Okay. Well, let's move on to, what are we doing next? So we're going to talk about our opinions?
Yes.
Okay. Because obviously, yeah, this is kind of a topic where people disagree greatly, and it's very kind of emotional responses from both sides, which is bizarre, in my opinion. But
why is that bizarre?
I understand. Well, it's just I am more towards. Well, I'm very, like, in the middle on this issue now. I used to be completely pro-choice, but I've kind of, over the years, as learning more about it, I'm almost to the point where I would say that I'm pro-life, but not quite.
What's holding you back?
So I'll go deep into it. So the reason that I'm not completely pro-life is because of the way that I define what life is. And to me, what sets human life different than like an animal or a dog or something like that, where we do, like, put dogs down sometimes and we put cats down, and that's maybe not the most, like, happy thing, but it's not considered, like, completely immoral. The thing that's different between humans and different animals like that is that we have consciousness. And so for me, what sets that apart is when consciousness begins. And I'm when I began forming my opinion on this, we don't know when humans develop consciousness. And there's more science coming out that is starting to show that it's sooner than we maybe originally thought. And maybe the whole cluster of cell argument it's not really quite true. So that's where I'm at. If there is a scientific study that can firmly prove that a fetus has consciousness and that there's more brain activity than we previously thought, then I would be like, this is completely immoral and this needs to stop right now. But right now, I'm at an in-between where I do think it's immoral, but I'm not sure if I can justify, like, federal law governing it and making it illegal, because there are good arguments on the other side how sometimes a woman can get into a bad situation, make a mistake, and it shouldn't ruin her life.
Well, that brings me kind of into my opinion on on abortion. Freudian slip. People use it as birth control.
Birth control.
Funny.
Yeah. Can I continue? It's just one thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
There needs to be a negative stigma towards abortion, regardless of whether it's proven, whether what I just stated is true or not. Like, it's not something that should be used the way it's used. There's far too many every year in the United States, and it shouldn't be looked at as a real option. It's the last worst case scenario if you fucked up. Like, the fact that most people that have abortions have already had an abortion, that's messed up. Like, don't make the same mistake twice. Don't even make it once. Like, we need to have good sex education, and people shouldn't be making this mistake because there's so much available to us at this time.
Yeah. Birth
control, like, different contraceptives.
Good job.
Look at me.
Big word, Nux.
Like, there's so much available to people that I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine being in that situation. Be responsible. Be an adult.
Yeah.
Like, are you really that? It's either you're like a 16-year-old kid, or you're a really irresponsible adult, and you should feel bad about yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're offended. That's my opinion!
So going into kind of what I think, which is a little bit stronger of a pro-life stance than Evan, I think human life is sacred to the point where it should be protected regardless. And I don't really like the distinction between pro-life and pro-choice, because I think conservatives and pro-lifers are pro-choice, but they disagree on what choice means. So, before conception is when I think your choice needs to be made. You can choose abstinence and you can choose birth control, or after conception, you can choose adoption. Those are your choices. It's not that you have no choice. It's that you have a choice between abstinence, birth control, and adoption. By abstinence, I don't mean never having sex, because that's unrealistic for a lot of people. By abstinence, I mean don't have sex with people that, like, one night stands, where you risk getting pregnant with someone you're not in a relationship with, you're not ready to have a baby with. Evan and I are engaged, and I don't want to be too personal, but, like, I could have a baby with Evan. It's different than a one-night stand, right? And I think that that's a choice, a moral choice that we need to make.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
But if you're not going to abstain from sex, you have the option, the choice, of using birth control. Now, I don't understand why we're not throwing all of this taxpayer money that we're using for abortions at birth control and sex education. Those are really important things. Like, and I think that maybe that's less of a typical conservative religious stance, but it's true. The more kids know about birth control, the less likely they are to have sex unprotected and conceive a child.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And then third is post-conception adoption. There are millions of parents on the waiting list right now to adopt a child. Now, I'm not saying that the adoption system isn't fucked up, because it is, and it can be, especially the foster system can get really messed up. But that being said, let's throw money and time and energy, instead of into abortions, into fixing the adoption foster care system. We're allocating our resources towards this really awful, fucked up thing when we can be educating people on birth control, providing free birth control, and fixing our adoption system. Being a conservative doesn't mean I don't believe in choices. And I think that that's one thing that I want to make really, really clear. But I don't think abortion is a choice. Or I don't think it should be. So.
You're fired up, my dog.
Bam, bam.
So I want to shout out my boy Poopy Pants right now.
Oh?
Because I was just thinking about how you were talking, and how he's probably going to roast me for talking about this, but a lot of this boils down to kind of a religious thing. Well, I
believed this before I was profoundly religious.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about what makes your, why there's such a stigma these days. How do I word this? So back in the day, back in the olden times, there was much more, a lot more religious people, and kind of like Christianity in the U.S. has kind of been phasing. It's been on the decline.
It goes bell, though. Do you know that?
Yeah, it'll come back. Cool. It'll come back, and I think it's coming back. But it's been on the decline for a while, and it's really shown. And so there's been a lot more, like having sex outside of marriage is very culturally accepted right now.
Yeah.
Whereas it not very accepted in the church. And so, is that wrong to say?
No. That's not where I thought you were going.
And so Poopy Pants, I'm still not super Christian, or I wouldn't even identify as Christian. But I do think that there are some Christian values and stuff that should be taken, at least thought about. It's like there's a reason for it. It's because of this.
Yeah.
And so if you're having unprotected sex outside of marriage, you're maybe an idiot.
Or outside of a committed relationship where you're ready to have kids.
Yeah.
Because marriage is a religious institution, and I'm here to say there are people out there that don't believe in marriage that are 100% ready to have kids.
If you're going out getting knocked up on a one-night stand.
Exactly.
Like, then you have to just...
Distinctions.
You're making a bad decision, and you should accept the consequences. I don't think there should be, like, framework. I don't think there should be so many people defending someone's right to do something that's stupid.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But... the same time it happens, and I think that's more just it's like an advertisement for maybe Christian values should be taken into consideration a little more, because we wouldn't have this problem in the first place.
Wow. Wouldn't imagine that coming out of your mouth.
Poopy pants, don't roast me.
Well, interestingly enough, how about we go into a couple of the arguments for abortion really quick?
For abortion?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to carry this?
No. All I was going to say is I think there are two major arguments that I hear all the time.
It's a woman's right.
Well, besides, it's my choice. It's my body, my choice. I don't want to wear a mask. Fuck you guys. My body, my choice. That's a stupid argument, first of all.
That's a fair argument.
No. That is radical autonomy, and I don't agree with it.
Radical autonomy. Sheesh.
I feel like the more I'm drinking, the more big words pop into my head.
Yeah, we're just smart right now. We haven't eaten all day.
We're going to watch this episode and be like, another one.
It's getting long, so I hope you guys are enjoying this crisp ass audio.
Well, and one of the biggest topics we'll probably cover on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of what we'll cover is going to be in bite-sized pieces because of what's going on in the media. But I really think this is the only thing that's going to come up until the Supreme Court hears it.
Yeah, I promise I will never agree to do a full abortion episode ever again. And the memes at the end will make up for it, maybe.
Maybe. We'll hope.
They're pretty good.
We'll hope. Okay, so the two arguments I am not going to bring up is my body, my choice, and rape and incest.
Yikes. Wait, you're not going to bring that up?
Well, we can talk about it really quick, but that's not what I was going to bring up.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. I think medical exemptions kind of fall into rape and incest, but that's kind of my personal opinion. And again, that kind of deviates from, like, the typical pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're raped, I think that's a completely different situation. And I would also like to note that only, like, 0.01% of abortions are rape victims. That almost never happens, so it pisses me off that that's a pro-abortion argument. That is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It almost never happens, and as someone who's very pro-life, I wouldn't even necessarily be completely opposed to it.
Right.
I still think it would haunt you just as much as the rape would. Wow, maybe that's a little bit of a... That maybe is
You're
too
aggressive
strong
in
of
the
a...
stance.
Too strong
You're
of a
definitely
statement.
aggressive in the stance, but you have... Like, your opinion definitely makes a lot of sense, and it's based on the fact that you believe that a fetus is a human life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Well, and that human life is sacred and deserves to be protected.
Definitely. Some people, they're not bad people for just disagreeing with that definition of when human life begins. Like, I fall into that category where I'm not sure, but I do question I'm not so vain, so confident.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm right. Like, I could very well be wrong, and I could be, like, justifying mass murder, and I would feel bad about that. So I'm not very confident in my opinion.
Damn.
Because if anyone's confident in that opinion...
Check yourself. Just maybe take a second and watch one of those videos where the fetus is trying to avoid being chopped up into itty bitty pieces.
Well, and just wait. Like, science will prove whether we're right or wrong. And if you're wrong about that, that's going to hurt.
Yep. And we'll get into genocide in a second, actually. And I promise. But really quick, there are two major abortion episodes. Jesus. There are two major abortion arguments that I hear often. One of those arguments is that if we were to ban abortions, people would do it anyway. And would do it unsafely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other argument is that abortion wasn't as taboo as it is now, or was in the 1990s, 80s, 90s, 70s.
It's not as taboo now?
It was not as taboo prior to Roe v. Wade.
Okay.
I know. So, and I'll go into that really fast. So, and this is from CNN.com, a very reputable source, wouldn't you say, Evan?
Absolutely, the most reputable.
Right, okay. But apparently, from the 18th century until about 1880, so the 1700s up until 1880, abortions were allowed under common law until the mother could feel the fetus moving inside her, which was called the quickening. For reference, people say they start to feel movement as early as 12 weeks, but typical quickening time is said to be at about 18 weeks. Okay. Quickening equals baby doing a little dancey dance. Okay.
Do my little dancey dance. Dude, we can't make these jokes. This topic's too heavy, man.
Well, but that's why I'm making them. I actually cried a little in this episode, and then I've also, did a little dancey dance.
Okay, anyway. This hurts.
Anyway, so abortions were mostly done during that time by taking herbs that were known to terminate pregnancy, as well as surgical abortions, but surgical abortions were actually just as risky as giving birth, so at that time a lot of people would just give birth. Okay. This is according to CNN. In 1969, the Catholic Church condemned non-therapeutic abortions, which I'm pretty sure most people agree on. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then in 1985, the Catholic Church condemned therapeutic abortions as well, meaning they do not allow any abortions. But by 1910, abortion was a criminal crime in every single state except Kentucky, up until 1973 with Roe v. Wade. So which is it? Is abortion so risky that people die doing it, and that's why we shouldn't ban it? Or was abortion a commonplace up until it was banned in 1910? Tell me.
Riddle me that.
What do you think, Evan?
What do I think?
Yep.
I don't know.
All right. So now, to finish out this episode, this topic on this episode, we're going to talk about how abortions are actually left over from the eugenics movement from Nazi Germany, and that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was actually a eugenicist who started Planned Parenthood to intentionally kill black children.
Yo, that sounds so bad, but this is actually true.
It's 100% true. You actually can find it straight up on Wikipedia, and that's how you know that the mainstream media is true shit.
And there's I'm not to say that is the main goal today, but it
started that way.
It started that way, and it's still having that impact.
More black children were killed via abortion in New York this past year than were born.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah, so...
And again, that's a statistic you're welcome to look up yourself.
Yikes. Yeah, but
I cry about this probably every so often. No.
Yeah.
There are more Planned Parenthood locations in predominantly black cities than any other place in the United States.
So let's go through those statistics that we have. Because a lot of the pro-choice arguments are that when they're talking about Planned Parenthood specifically, they say that Planned Parenthood does a lot outside of abortions, and they're really it's all about women's health, and that's just not true.
It's not true. It's founded on a racist principle, and it is not true.
Yeah. So let's read through those. Do you have those numbers and everything?
Yeah, I do. So these numbers are from the 2019-2020 Planned Parenthood annual report.
Yep, Planned Parenthood released these numbers themselves.
So we are quoting Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
There are 41 abortions for every one prenatal service. So when you say to me that Planned Parenthood actually also provides prenatal services, fuck off.
Oh, true. Continue. Let's get through these.
True.
133 abortions for every one adoption referral. So that's probably not a part of their agenda.
No.
Okay.
There is one baby killed every 89 seconds. Baby killed.
Planned Parenthood commits
41.
over 41% of abortions in the country.
Another baby was just killed.
So there's more than Planned Parenthood doing this. Yikes.
Well, yeah, there are clinics all over the country, but the painful part about this is that Planned Parenthood is taxpayer funded. And we'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
So the part that really hurts is like, I'm paying for this. You're paying for this. Yeah. And every single person watching is paying for this.
Mm-hmm. And we're told that it's doing much more than abortions. Abortions are a small percentage of what they do. Fuck off. You published these numbers yourself, Planned Parenthood.
Last year, Planned Parenthood committed a record high total of 354,871 abortions.
Yikes. Planned Parenthood kills over 972 children daily, most of them black. Why you gotta add that?
Because it's racist.
That was. Yeah. Well, and I think it's not. They're not targeting that.
They are. That's the conspiracy theory is that they are.
Well, that's a whole different conversation.
Okay.
I think there needs to be some societal changes in different communities, and call me racist.
Okay, so now over the last 10 years, so these all have to do with prenatal and adoption and that kind of stuff, but riddle me this. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, Planned Parenthood does pap smears, provides birth control, etc. Let me read some statistics for you really fast. Over the last 10 years, Planned Parenthood has done 72% less pap smears, 68% less prenatal services, 68% less breast exams, 6.7% more abortions, and has had over 70% increase in taxpayer funding.
Wow. All right. So the government is basically just paying them to kill babies.
To commit abortion, yep.
Okay.
You like how I say commit instead of perform?
Perform.
Perform is a medical procedure. Commit sounds like murder.
Right.
Okay, so my last question for this section is, why are pro-choice people opposed to bills such as the Gestational Age Act, which does not ban abortions completely, but limits them to when the child starts moving around in the stomach and to when non-invasive abortion procedures can be used?
Yeah.
Why advocate for abortion past 3 months?
It's an interesting topic, and like, if you're someone who's gotten an abortion, like, did you not know that you were pregnant before that time, or was it a hard decision to make where you needed extra time? And there's no argument that says that an abortion at 30 weeks is better than an abortion at 12 weeks.
Oh my God, it's not.
Yeah, so like...
It's way more invasive the longer you go.
I honestly... How would you not know outside of like 6 weeks?
Your first
at
missed
6
period.
weeks, you'd probably be getting a test and being like, something's up, right?
Well, and if it was an incident of rape or incest, you would probably go to the hospital and they would tell you.
Yeah.
So to close out, the mental toll on women, most women who get an abortion have depression, bouts of depression afterwards, and a large majority of women also regret their decision. And it's a permanent decision that we'll all have to be judged for someday. So.
Holy. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court will be making a judgment on whether or not to uphold Roe v. Wade very soon.
Yes.
So, everything we've talked about today, that's kind of what we're getting at. Like, there's a big argument for Roe v. Wade being overturned.
Yeah.
And we didn't really cover so much the arguments that the people who are pro-choice have.
Do we even need to?
I think a lot of it is anecdotal, and it's kind of like...
What do you mean? Can you give me a quick example?
Like, to say that it's a woman's right. A lot of it doesn't take into account.
Do you mean pro-choice, not pro-life?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, did I say pro-life?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, pro-choice.
Did you? Okay. We'll watch this back and be like, these fucking idiots. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's move on to the meme segment.
Okay.
Let's brighten up.
Yes.
That was a pretty heavy day.
Yeah.
Heavy week.
Worth talking about, though.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to follow along and interesting to like have these conversations open up because I don't know, for me the abortion conversation it always ends up at the same place, and it's where you define life. And if you're the type of person like nobody really is saying that they think it's okay to kill a baby while he like an unborn child.
Most people
most of the people that are pro-choice believe that life doesn't begin until you're born. So it's not like there's a good side and there's a bad side. There's just a difference in like scientific belief and like what you said, the like the value of what human life, like how sacred human life is or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah. We kind of differ in our opinions. And
we do. I think you're a little bit more lenient, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
And as I've been learning more, I have been going more towards pro-life.
I just feel like this is far away from you. There.
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch. Nothing picked up this entire episode. All right. We're probably going to have to pause. Or do you have the memes?
I have the memes.
All right. Let's look at some memes.
Okay. Why are you giggling?
My memes are okay this week.
Okay. They're actually also not abortion related. Oh, and one more quick thing. If you made it this far and you thought any of our arguments were compelling or agreed with any of it, please share this with someone and start a dialogue. Mm-hmm. This is a hot button topic that a lot of people avoid, especially with friends and family. And if we need to be the ones to break the news to them that you're pro-choice or pro-life, dude, pass along. We'd love to open a dialogue, not only with our listeners, but between listeners and their friends and family. Plus, it'll help with our exposure.
All right, ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bam.
Bam.
New study confirms that reopening Texas 100% has no discernible impact on COVID-19 cases or deaths. Why can't you just die already? No.
My favorite now is when people are walking around saying, I'm going to wear a mask anyway, even though the CDC has said it's okay and my state lifted mask restrictions. I don't want anybody thinking I'm a Republican. Okay. Fucking fun. Okay.
Have fun.
Good job. Do you want a pat on the back? Like, okay. The other thing is, Evan and I this week, he's showing me memes that I have not seen. And I'm going to show him memes that he has not seen. That's a genuine reaction.
All right, I don't have many this week.
Okay.
Bam.
Okay, that's not really a meme.
It's not a meme, but look, I saw this. I took a picture of this. Those are sick-ass rims, dude. Are those sweet?
Evan and I have been having car problems, so he had to pick me up from the court, and we saw that in the courthouse.
Yeah, those are the sickest rims I've ever seen.
You know what? I'm offended that you included that.
Why? It's beautiful. All right, here's one. Bam.
Bam.
Oh my God, your phone is about to die.
I know.
This hits me deep.
Will you read it?
All right, it says, I never thought I'd live to see the day when the right wing would become the cool ones giving the middle finger to the establishment, and the left would become the sniveling, self-righteous, twatty ones going around shaming everyone. From John Lennon from the Sex Pistols. And that's I get called a liberal a lot.
By me?
When I was younger. Yeah, by you. They said that I was a liberal.
Which I wasn't. Liberal.
I was not.
You were.
See, I grew up listening to Rage Against the Machine and that type of thing where it's like, yo, fuck the system. I'm a libertarian.
But the Republicans were the system at that time.
Were they? Why have we done such a 180?
Was Bill Clinton the president when Rage Against the Machine was popular? Probably.
Maybe.
Never mind. Okay, continue.
So, like, I've always just kind of been, I don't really trust authority. I probably have a bit of a problem with authority. And it's just very, very fascinating to me that we did such a 180 where, like, someone like Rage Against the Machine is now going around telling people that what the left is saying.
Yeah, they should get a vaccine. They should listen to the federal government. We should elect...
Censor their speech.
They should give more money to the government so the government can give it out to other people.
Yeah. So
wealth redistribution, yeah.
Just interesting. And I think you had a meme?
I have a meme as well to show you. I've got to be better about saving them, honestly. And I might look really quick to see if there's any other ones, and I'll cut that.
If our audio wasn't messed up last week, we would have had, like, hundreds of memes sent to us from that big blow-up episode.
Yep.
But since it was bad, not really that many people watched it. So,
you know.
It'll be different this week. It'll be different. Everyone wants to sit through this hour-and-a-half episode on abortion. So
they do, yeah.
We'll have a lot of people here sending memes in this week.
How the left proposes we give everyone, quote, their fair share. Take half of this guy's money and give it to this guy.
That's very, very true. Is that an electrician?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, represent!
But I thought this was a funny meme because we do have an employment crisis in the company. Oh my god.
Yo, straight up. Like,
in the country is what I meant to say.
Yeah. And I've been seeing a lot of, like, minimum wage type workers complaining about how, like, their restaurants, like, this is like fast food, like places that should be minimum wage.
Yeah.
They're complaining that, like, they're so understaffed that there's like 4 people, say it's like a McDonald's, there's like 4 people that work there right now.
Yeah.
And they have to, like, they clock out during their lunch breaks and work through it because there's not enough people. Like, that's wrong, but it's because so many people are making $600 a week on unemployment that why would they go work these jobs?
Yeah.
It's like there's a reason why the government doesn't give out free money. It's because we need everyone to be a part of the labor force.
Well, they are giving out free money right now, and that's what's fucked. And Evan and I make less money than people I see in court every single day on disability and unemployment. It
combined
sucks. Well, combined, yeah. Now, I will say that I sold over $300 in commission in knife sales this weekend, so you can suck my dick.
Breadwinner?
Breadwinner. You're right. So, thank you to everyone who's watching our podcast, and also people who bought my knives this weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out. And hit her up.
Yeah, please. Once I hit a certain number of sales, I'll include an affiliate link with our podcast so you guys can click on it and buy straight from me for Cutco. Yay!
Hit me up with memes, too.
Yes, please send us memes. If you see one that you think is funny, we would love to see it. So, Evan, I think that's it. And I think we've really given the people what a normal, average American is thinking about American politics today.
That's quite true, and they could hear us this week, too.
Damn.
It's been a pleasure, Lauren.
It's been a pleasure, Evan.